I again want to thank the Secretary for your work. This issue of transportation is fundamentally about just making sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go. It's that basic.
The Vice President of the United States explaining the definition of the word transportation. Doing a bang-up job, too, I've got to say. That maybe she should be the Secretary of Transportation. Should become the supply chain czar. She could be the czar of something else. The czarina, whatever. Wouldn't want to be sexist about it. Well, happy Wednesday to you and welcome. It's hump day here in America. So Hillary Clinton, once again, waking up face down in a pool of her own dried vomit. One of their several mansions, peeling her face off the linoleum floor. That's right, they have linoleum. It's kind of an avocado green linoleum floor, matches the appliances there. Hillary Clinton, what a tragic life is hers. Am I right? Between the marriage and then Webb Hubbell's daughter and her political career, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. Honestly, she was our chief diplomat under Secretary of State under President Barack Obama, then President Barack Obama. And as our chief diplomat, we bombed more countries than any administration since World War II. All right. She should probably get the Margaret Sanger Award again or something like that. She did get the Margaret Sanger Award. She displays it proudly on her mantle, I have no doubt, because, you know, they're the people behind the voluntary human extinction movement. But setting that aside, listen, Joe Biden is in Europe, and he's the president of the United States today. Amazingly, who voted for him? Raise your hand if you voted for him. Wow, what is the matter with you? What were you thinking? Were you thinking? Can you think? You know who he is? Do you know what he is? Boy, do you know who Tara Reid is? Do you know Hunter Biden? Do you know Ashley Biden? Do you know how many grandkids he has? Because he doesn't. That's just one of the many features of Lunch Bucket Joe Biden. A lot to talk about because Joe Biden he's off there embarrassing not only himself, but all of us. Last night he was at the NATO gathering, the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania. Vilnius, and the big event there, they have little handshakes, and they meet and they sit at a table and they have little earpieces in, and then they have glasses of water, and then really the big event that everybody goes for is the big dinner, where all of the leaders of the NATO nations gather for a big dinner, and they hobnob and they hang out and they do a little backslapping and maybe cut some crooked deals. At least the Bidens are inclined to do that. All kinds of good stuff. And they they get things done. That's where people powwow and they glad hand and they build relationships. And Joe Biden missed the dinner last night because his staff explained that he's been real busy for the last 4 days, so he couldn't possibly make the dinner, the NATO summit dinner with the leaders of the NATO nations at the dinner. He had to go sleepy time because there was an episode of Hazel on. They found out the White House staff checked ahead, and it turns out in Lithuania they have antenna TV also, and the timing just worked out that Hazel was on same time the dinner. So he had to stay and get in his high chair and put his bib on, and they gave him a spoon so that he does not hurt himself or others, like Ruprecht the monkey boy, kind of like Ruprecht the monkey boy. If you give him a fork, you got to put a cork on the end of it so that it's not a dangerous implement in his hand. But we got that. And so Joe Biden was embarrassing us from beginning to end on this trip. With the King of England, he stopped to talk to a member of the Honor Guard, the Royal Honor Guard, with the King of England there. And he's talking to him like he's a guy at a 7-Eleven who's making him a Slurpee. And, of course, the Honor Guard got it like eyes straight ahead, can't address anyone. The only time you can move is if the king is in danger. Then he's supposed to bayonet the guy to death or something. But the President of the United States is talking to the British soldier, and the poor British soldier is frozen in place. It's like, I can't even say, I can't talk to you. You can't even say that much. But Joe Biden. And then he was stumbling around getting off the plane in Vilnius. Then he was stumbling around. They didn't have to. They signed a guest book, hey, I'm here. I'm the President of the United States. Sign here. So he's signing here, and he was walking around bumping into stuff. The King of England, King Chuck III, had to shepherd Biden around, grab him by the elbow, pull him away from the soldier. He's like, what are you standing there talking to the soldier? What are you, nuts? And he grabbed Joe Biden by the elbow and yanked him away and led him over to some steps. And the King of England waved Joe Biden, President of the United States, ahead of him to go up the steps. And he stopped and said, no, I insist you go up first. And he's like, just go along, would you dimwit? And then the big event, the dinner, where they had real nice chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans. Something like, I don't know what they had. I didn't look at the menu, but he didn't look at the menu either. Maybe he did, and it was good food, so he didn't want to go. But he didn't go. He didn't go to the dinner. So once again, and the headlines are everywhere. President Biden skips NATO dinner. White House cites his ongoing workload. And then I got this New York Times guy. He's a propagandist for the Democrat Party, Peter Baker. And he explained this morning on Morning Joke, where Mika was really angry. She's bitter because she's a propagandist for the Democrat, and she's completely out of the closet. She's wearing her Democrat Party uniform this morning with the hat and the epaulettes and carrying a riding crop and stuff because she's really smacking her own thigh. She's a major league propagandist for the Democrat Party and for the Biden White House. And she was very angrily denouncing White House staff this morning on that Morning Joke show, right? She's on with Joke, and she is his semi-inflatable flotation device of a third wife with a single-digit IQ. Is it true that it's a single-digit IQ? Because most people have double-digit IQs, and but maybe not Mika. And she's angry. But Peter Baker of the New York Times explained that Joe Biden's new work schedule, because last year his work schedule was 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Now it's noon to 4 p.m. So it was 5 hours a day last year. Now it's 4 hours a day, and it doesn't start till noon. And I looked it up. Hazel is on in the morning now on Antenna TV. So that's probably a big part of the explanation. And he has a bowl of cereal and sits in his high chair and kicks his feet back and forth and yells curse words at people as they walk by. Promises to give cluster bombs to anybody that wants them because he's Cluster Joe. He's Cluster Joe or Cluster Bomb Biden. He's known as Cluster Bomb Biden, too. So we got that, though. And then here's the NBC News. I have to – I wouldn't normally read this on the air, but it's NBC News, and they're the mainstream news media, And the headline from NBC News is Biden confronts, quote, a pissed-off generation, end quote, of young voters who may be decisive in 2024. That's NBC News. And that's where Mika works, isn't it? And that's where Peter Baker was explaining that Joe Biden works from noon to 4. He's the president. And he couldn't make the dinner because the White House said, hey, come on, he worked the last 4 days in a row. And even that wasn't really true because he had been at the beach. That was the work. He had to drag that aluminum chair that weighed like 14 ounces across the sand, and that was apparently a bit much for him. The Speaker of the entire House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, suggests he's going to force Hunter Biden prosecutor to testify. The left-wing mediaite very upset about this. What? Government accountability? Branches of government? What's this? Gentlemen, we must hold on to our phony baloney jobs. This is some. You cannot sit back and hide, Kevin McCarthy says. This is the one the one in Delaware that they say that everybody in the media tells you that he's a Trump appointee. They just leave out the fact that first he was appointed twice by Obama, and then he was highly recommended by the two Democrat senators in Delaware to Donald Trump, and President Trump went along with it. They always leave that out, but we'll get to that. Also, speaking of Democrats, one of the Manson murderers, the Charles Manson family, the Sharon Tate, and then the LaBianca family, Los Angeles, 1969, butchered, massacred, used their blood as painting tools. Some of the stuff looked like Hunter Biden art. Have you seen the photographs? Looked like Hunter. They might have blown some of it through straws. But one of the Manson murderers, Leslie Van Houten, has been released. She's loose on the streets now in California. But fear not, because the Democrats in California say she's good to go. She's fine. That's no problem. And Charles Manson follower Leslie Van Houten, I've got more on that. She's a tragic story. She is a tragic story. There's no doubt about it. She was a cheerleader and what was she, homecoming princess. And then her parents got divorced. The divorce can be a terrible thing. And she met Chuck Manson. They got another Chuck, a lot of Chucks out there. And do we have any Chunk Todd today? Because he's another Chuck, too. But Leslie Van Houten, loose on the streets. And, you may remember also that the parole board in California last year approved the release of Sirhan Sirhan, the parole board, who shot and killed Robert F. Kennedy Sr. And, I'm thinking Gavin Newsom hasn't signed the paper to let him out of prison yet, but the parole board approved the release of Sirhan Sirhan because California is insane, right? And that's part of the problem. But I'll get into those stories as well. They're out of their minds, and it's California. Leslie Van Houten. I see the Democrats want to give her the vote because they know that she'd vote Democrat. They know that she was one of the people writing stuff with the blood of the LaBiancas, but never mind that. And there is a tech magazine called Wired magazine. They've got a story, why we don't recommend ring cameras. The cameras you have, your doorbell, your front door, wherever you put them, to look out at your front doorstep or the neighborhood or whatever. Wired magazine, they know, they follow this stuff. They don't recommend ring cameras, and you're never going to believe why. You might believe it when I explain it, but why Wired magazine does not recommend ring cameras? It's just as crazy. They're all insane. What is the Jim Morrison and the Doors, and all the children are insane, and I don't know what happened to them, but something's gone terribly wrong in the United States of America. Chicago suburb starts making $25,000 reparations payouts as a test run for the whole country. Got that for you, $25,000 payouts. I'm moving there, and I'm doing the Rachel Dolezal thing. I'm Rachel Dolezal, 4 white grandparents, 2 white parents. That's how that works. That's white privilege. And then the ultimate demonstration of white privilege, she declared herself to be black, and she's black. And MSNBC agreed. They said, hey, if she says she's black, that's like, if she says she's a black man, that's fine. If she says she's an NBA champion, that's fine too. Pretty amazing. And the media very upset. There's a new movie coming out about the Manhattan Project, where the United States of America developed the nuclear bomb that the Democrats used twice on Japan. It's always the Democrats, isn't it? And it was the right thing to do, Harry Truman. It ended the war. But Christopher, here's the angry headline about. It's called Oppenheimer, the movie about the Manhattan Project, and it's in theaters near you soon. Oppenheimer. Robert Downey Jr. is in it, but he's not Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy is Oppenheimer, but that's not important now. The headline is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer has an all-white cast. See, the Democrats and race. Now, I'm kind of giving away the Wired thing here a little bit, but I'll get to that. Yeah, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. It's a movie about Robert Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project and the development of the atomic bomb in the United States of America. And they're angry that it has an all-white cast because they feel that Robert Oppenheimer should have been played by Denzel Washington or something, and that would have been better. They're not concerned with history so much as they are with race, being the party of the Confederacy and everything. Pretty amazing. And we've got, because the Democrats are still out of the cage, a teenage girl, a 16-year-old girl in Springfield, Illinois, of all places, who's was on a swim team until she went to the YMCA to swim, and there were 2 young men naked in the ladies' locker room. They call them biological males. You know what biological males are? They're males. That's that biological is redundant and superfluous. You know, a biological man is a man. A biological woman is a woman. You don't need to say biological. Okay? So we got that. And Frederick resident trying to become first openly transgender member of Congress. That's coming up. I haven't even read that story. I'm going to guess Democrat, probably a Democrat. And a Georgia state representative ditches the Democrat Party to become a Republican. This is going to really anger the Democrats. Also have news on Ed Henry, formerly of Fox News. Not happy news, but I've got stories that go with that, too. We are at 888-630-9625, and it looks like today our telephones are operational again. 888-630-9625. Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear, around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. Man, oh, Manischewitz. Now, again, Joe Biden is overseas embarrassing us. Normally, he's here in the United States embarrassing us. And the Fox News Channel has a story on the latest episode of Joe Biden. Joe Biden, it's a Cluster Joe. They call him Cluster Joe at the NATO gathering. And Cluster Bomb Biden, known as Cluster Bomb Biden. His administration is a cluster bomb, too. His entire 4 years as president will be a cluster bomb when he's done with it. And I made a video yesterday after the radio broadcast, which we posted on your various social media platforms. A quick video, just a couple of minutes long, saying that I believe Joe Biden will not be the candidate next year for the Democrat Party. They're going to find a way to squeeze him out, to ease him out, to work someone else in. And the reason I say this is because I consulted the Magic 8 Ball and the Ouija board. I did the Magic 8 Ball and the Ouija board. And the Magic 8 Ball says all signs point to yes. Is that what it says? And and I didn't really consult the Magic 8 Ball, so I'd have to refresh my memory. Somebody did send us a Magic 8 Ball here about a year ago, though. And it's here. It's here. And today is mailbag day, too. Today, and I got some gifts. I got some gifts that I want to tell you about from wonderful Americans, listeners out there. Yeah, Joe Biden, Cluster Bomb Biden, over there, and the news media, they're very concerned, but at the same time, they got to get rid of him. And they're grooming, they do a lot of grooming, don't they? Except personal grooming, they don't do that. They're grooming some other candidates. I picked up my absolute joke of a Washington Post today on the front page of the Metro sectional. They have the A sectional and the Metro sectional. Who is it I saw? You saw the New York Times is getting rid of their sports section and their whole sports department. They're all gone. And then I believe the Los Angeles Times followed suit within 24 hours. Like, well, hey, if the New York Times isn't doing it, we just follow them and everything. We'll also get rid of our sports section because it's probably, reeking of toxic masculinity or something like that, particularly in the girls' locker room. We'll get to that. But the Metro sectional front page, D.C. Council passes legislation to combat rising crime. Emergency Act will be in effect for 90 days after it's signed by mayor, but only for 90 days because they don't actually think it's going to work. So, if it were going to work, you wouldn't just put it in place for 90 days, would you? You'd make it a law. Why would you have a law for 90 days? What kind of idiots are these people? How many kinds are there? The D.C. Council on Tuesday passed emergency public safety legislation as the city weathers a violent summer. establishing a new crime for firing a gun in public and making it easier for judges to detain people charged with violent offenses before trial, a provision that drew extended debate. The legislation proposed by Council Member Brooke Pinto, it's Brooke Pinto, and passed 12-1 with opposition from Council members Janess Lewis George from the 4th Ward. That's a ward that's broken up into wards like that. It'll be in effect for 90 days after the mayor signs it. What makes you think the mayor is going to sign it? Pinto's bill is similar to a proposal put forth by Mayor Muriel Bowser that lawmakers are expected to debate in the fall. Well, you definitely want to let the crime run rampant until the fall before you even start debating it. Because you know who's behind this, I think? The Rothschilds. I think probably the Rothschilds are behind this. You know what I'm talking about. Wink, wink, the Democrats. It's the Jews. That's Trayon White, D.C. council member. He thinks that the Rothschild family makes it snow in Washington when he's driving to work just to inconvenience him because they want to seize his magical powers. That's a pretty amazing thing. So the rising homicide rates, the rising carjacking rates, the rising violent assault rates, everything is up in Washington, D.C., all the bad stuff, all the crimes, and the taxes, too. The taxes, that's about it. Now, with that, there is another story that got some attention, a little attention. Suspect arrested in killing of Kentucky teacher. There was a teacher from Kentucky at Catholic University. Catholic University is up North Capitol Street. You can look right down North Capitol Street and see the Capitol Dome. Maxwell Emerson was shot to death on Catholic University's campus while visiting D.C. from Kentucky. He wanted to go look at Catholic University. The suspect was arrested on Tuesday and charged with killing a Kentucky teacher on Catholic University's campus, law enforcement sources told News 4, the NBC local station, and arrested when charged with murder. The suspect is 22-year-old Jamie Maceo. You think it's Maceo? Could be Jaime, could be, it's Jaime, and it could be Jaime. Maceo, also known as Jaime Masadeo, because he's got an alias like that, police said. Maxwell Max Emerson, 25 years old, was visiting and on his way to attend a professional development workshop for teachers at the Library of Congress when he was gunned down in front of Father O'Connell Hall the morning of Wednesday, July 5th. And the police have arrested this guy, and that's good, and there are photographs of him and all that stuff. Now, here's the thing. Jamie Maceo arrested. Every time I look at one of the NBC things, his first name is spelled differently, and then his last name is spelled differently a couple of different times, too. But I'm going to go with Jamie Maceo. Arrested today in connection with the Catholic University shooting, the tweet from yesterday, was set to go to trial yesterday. Listen to this. He was already set to go to trial yesterday on weapons charges from May of last year, from May of 2022, when he was arrested on weapons charges. But the U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia dismissed the case on Friday, June 30th, 5 days before he went to Catholic University and shot to death a 25-year-old from Kentucky. Because this is the world that the left creates, okay? They're not liberals, they're the left. These are the Democrats for sure, but keep in mind that the Democratic Party isn't. And they love crime and they love criminals because, it's their sons. The problem is not our guns, it's your sons. And Jamie Maceo, arrested with the murder of a 25-year-old from Kentucky, should have been in jail. He was set to go to trial yesterday, but the U.S. Attorney's Office, that's Joe Biden's administration, dismissed the case on June 30th, right? And then on July 5th, he went and murdered a 25-year-old on a college campus in Washington, D.C. by shooting him to death because the Democrats, and now he's been arrested again, think this time they'll just let him out and drop the charges? Because that's your Democrat Party. That's what they do. That's who they are. They're not on your side, and they're not on our side. That's your Democrat Party. Let's go to some, because Joe Biden is a Democrat, isn't he? And the headline is President Biden skips NATO dinner. White House cites ongoing workload. He's got quite a heavy workload. You know, Joe, this is the third time Biden has skipped dinner with world leaders while on international trips. Isn't that extraordinary? President Biden elected skipping Tuesday's NATO dinner with world leaders, as the White House said it was because the president had 4 full work days and needed to prepare for a speech tomorrow. That speech is today. Somebody else wrote the speech. He just had to read it, you know. Biden RSVP'd, responsively played no to the NATO summit dinner with other world leaders as the 2023 summit kicked off. This is the third time the president has skipped a dinner with world leaders while on an international trip, the Fox News Channel reports. Fox News Digital asked White House for comment regarding Biden skipping the NATO dinner. And if the president was skipping because he had 4 full days of official business, why was he on the beach on Saturday? See, they said he had 4 busy days, right? He skipped the dinner on Tuesday. So going backward, that would be, if we include Tuesday, then we go back to Monday, then we go Sunday, then we go Saturday. But wait a minute, he hasn't had 4 busy days, because 4 days ago he was on the beach in Delaware trying to drag around a 12-ounce chair, and he was having a little trouble doing that. After publication, a White House official told Fox News Digital that the event was a social dinner. Yeah, sure, it's where all the business gets done. And said that the president was in the midst of, quote, 4 full days of official business abroad, including back-to-back summit meetings and a major speech. That's today, a major speech, which he hasn't gotten to yet, but that's okay because he's sleepyhead, you know. And Biden also spent some of his time speaking to state and federal officials about the U.S. response to flooding in Vermont. This is he also had a phone call about floods in Vermont. So, of course, he can't go to the dinner. Right? Now, let's go to MSNBC because this is our president of the United States. And this is our media. Now, Mike Barnicle is a longtime Democrat Party apparatchik who pretends to be a columnist. And he was in that movie, The Candidate. He was in that with Robert Redford running for Senate about 75 years ago. Mike Barnicle. And he was on Morning Joke this morning with Mika, who is honestly not the sharpest bulb in the constellation. But she was on with Mike Barnicle, and Joke is in the background somewhere. And Joe Biden is kind of old, and he's not showing up most of the time, is he?
He doesn't run as fast as he used to. He doesn't look as agile as he used to because of his age. He has a troubled foot that makes his walk look a little more lame than he is actually.
Clubfoot.
It makes it look worse than it is. But at the end of the day, given his age, I think that's what he has to campaign on. Own your age. Say things like, hey, when Washington crossed the Delaware, I was there to help pull those boats in. That's how old I am.
That's what he has to run on. So he has to run on being... And a lot of 80-year-olds can, throw a baseball 100 yards. Joe Biden is not up to the task of really anything. He couldn't work at a Dairy Queen, and he shouldn't be president of the United States. And I don't believe that he'll be their candidate next year. The video I posted yesterday, well, I didn't post it. Michael Piercy posted it, but I made the video and talked about how Joe Biden, all the signs are in the news media that they're fixing to dump him. But not Mika and Joe. No, that's what he ought to run on. Ronald Reagan made a funny joke when he was debating Walter Mondale. I'm not going to make my opponent's youth and inexperience an issue in this campaign, something like that. He delivered it better. But and Barnicle is saying, well, he should make it a joke and make it fun, and then we'll all laugh along with him, and we'll be his propagandists. And just in case you don't believe that, Mika is very angry with the White House staff for allowing him to look like Mr. Magoo, as at least one headline described him yesterday. Mr. Magoo going around bumping into stuff, and oh, Magoo, you've done it again. But Mika's very angry with the White House staff. Yesterday I was talking about a lot of Democrats, and they were very angry too. But Mika, very angry this morning with the White House staff because Joe Biden looks like what he is.
Yeah, I think his staff needs to own his age. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think they do a good job helping out the president. And I'm not talking about it like, I'm just saying,
but
if
you
are managing a president's schedule and you are managing a president getting on stage and getting off stage and getting on planes and getting off planes, and yes,
falling.
He's 80. You need to be there for him, and you need to make a pathway. And you sure as hell better make sure he doesn't fall on a sandbag. And I blame the staff for that.
She's angry, and she blames the staff because he tripped over a sandbag that was right in front of him. It was black, and he didn't see it, and he kicked it, and then he tripped over it. And the staff should drag his 12-ounce aluminum frame beach chair across the sand as well. And the staff should walk up the steps to Air Force One for him, or they should get him an elevator. Some of the Saudi kings, the Arab kings, have elevators for their private airliners. And instead of having to walk up the steps, they walk into a cube, and the cube is an elevator, and it brings them up to the door of their private airliner, and then they walk onto their airliner. I suspect Joe Biden might be getting one of those pretty soon. One of the Arab monarchs should send him one of those as a joke. The Saudis, that'd be good. You know how they love to hate the Saudis and all that. So Mika, again, very angry with the White House staff.
My God, do a better job, because you can't have these video images of the president tripping or the president going the wrong way. It's not going to work in this presidency because his age is going to be a factor. His age is going to be a factor, and it's your job to make sure he gets from one place to another. He can handle the presidency. You have to handle his schedule and where he goes.
Well, and the schedule.
It makes me mad.
It makes her very angry. She's Marvin the Martian. She's very, very angry.
You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
She's not a propagandist or anything like that. She's not. You've got to handle him. Well, you're handling him. I think you would handle him, but that's another discussion for another day. The New York Times has a propagandist by the name of Peter Baker. He's an award-winning propagandist for the Democrat Party, has been for a very long time, and he's right there with him. They need to. They're scolding the White House staff for not being better to Joe.
They try to protect him, and they do try to accommodate him. They'll deny it, but they do. I mean, if you look at his schedule, for instance, any analysis of his schedule shows that the vast majority of his public events are scheduled between roughly 12 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the time of day that is both best from their point of view, from a media point of view, but also from let's face it, from a best part of the day for him point of view.
Noon to 4 p.m. That's when he's best. Huh? They got his ear horn out, and he's already watched Hazel. He's had his breakfast cereal. And noon to 4 p.m. That's the New York Times. Well, they do handle him. He handles them sometimes, too. Just ask Tara Reid. And Peter Baker of the New York Times, he works noon to 4, Peter Baker says. Just ask the staff. That's when he's at his best.
And they try to, give him his weekends if they can. Doesn't mean he doesn't get called on weekends. Doesn't mean he has meetings on weekends or issues to deal with on weekends. But for the most part, they try to protect his weekends as best they can.
And his mornings and his afternoons and his weekends and his travel schedule. And that's a propaganda exercise there. Mika and Joke. And Mike Barnacle and Peter Baker of the New York Times. Well, thanks, Peter. He's good because last year he was good from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is 5 hours a day. Now he's good from noon to 4, according to the New York Times, which is 4 hours a day and a much later start, a noon start. After noonish, he's okay. You can trot him out and you can talk to people. After 4, it's nap time again. Got to get him a bowl of something and a remote control. park him in front of a television and leave him alone.
Well, whenever I'm confused, I just check my underwear. It holds the answer to all the important questions.
It's your job to make sure he gets from one place to another. He can handle the presidency.
That's right. He can handle the presidency. He just can't handle going from one place to another. See, there are differences, and one place to another, hard. Being president of the United States, easy. Also, I went and looked it up. Axios, just about 3 months ago, reported that Joe Biden was working from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's 6 hours a day. But now Peter Baker at the New York Times says it's been shortened.
Any analysis of his schedule shows that the vast majority of his public events are scheduled between roughly 12 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
12 and 4, so that's 4 hours a day. Now, 4 hours a day times 5 days a week, that's a 20-hour work week. The New York Times award-winning journalist Peter Baker revealing that news, updating the now 3-month-old Axios reporting that it was 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That was a 6-hour-a-day work day, and now it's down to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, a 20-hour work week. And still he can't make dinner. I mean, it's just dinner, but he couldn't do it. And they say, well, he had to give a speech the next day. That's today, he had to make a speech. So they don't want that. You know what I'm talking about. I want to go to phone calls, but I'm looking at the clock as well, and I don't want to give you a short shrift there. Today is also Mailbag Day, and we got a couple of packages in the mail. They went through very intense scrutiny and security, looking for white powder and stuff. And we did find a bag of cocaine, but that one was from Hunter. We got that. Thanks, Hunter, for the bag of cocaine. It wasn't ricin or anything like that. We didn't really get a bag of white powder, because everybody's nice. Everybody's nice out there. There are crazy people out there, like everybody says. Everybody's pretty nice. But we got a couple of nice things. And I want to share that. And we have the mailbag today, and I'm going to get to that. Joe Biden, we have more Joe Biden because he's not long for this job. He's not going to go for a second term. The party knows they need to kick him to the curb and get someone else. And Democrat voter and Manson follower Leslie Van Houten released from prison because Democrats. And a lot more Democrat news, like gender and things.